I was 15 when my family decided I was guilty. Not after a conversation, not after a question, after a story. My brother stood in the kitchen holding our dad's credit card and said, "She took it." That was enough. My mom didn't look at me. My dad didn't ask where I'd been. No one asked why I would even need it. They just grounded me. The entire winter. No phone. No friends. No school events. While snow piled up outside my window, I sat in my room replaying the same thought over and over. How do you prove something when no one wants to hear you? My brother didn't even look nervous. He looked offended, like he couldn't believe anyone would doubt him. He was the perfect son. Good grades. Good smile. Always knew what to say. I was the quiet one. The convenient one to blame. 3 days later, my aunt came over for coffee. She worked in accounting. Numbers were her language. She overheard my mom mention the credit card incident and frowned. Then she said something simple that changed everything. "Did you check the statement?" Before I tell you what she found, take a second to hit like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. And tell me, have you ever been punished for something you didn't do? My name is Emily, and that winter taught me something early. In some families, the truth doesn't matter nearly as much as who tells the story first. My mom waved it off at first. "There's nothing to check," she said. "He already told us what happened." That was the pattern. Evidence came second. Loyalty came first. But my aunt didn't drop it. She set her coffee down and said, "Humor me." Reluctantly, my dad pulled out his laptop, logged in, opened the statement. I watched from the doorway of the hallway, not invited to sit, not asked to explain, just waiting. The screen loaded slowly, transaction by transaction, gas station, fast food, online games, dates, times. My aunt leaned closer. "These charges," she said, pointing, "they happened during school hours." My mom frowned. So Emily was in class, my aunt replied calmly. "She didn't have access to a car, and she doesn't play these games." The room shifted. My dad scrolled. More charges. Same pattern. Same days. Then my aunt asked the question no one else had. "Where was your son during these times?" Silence. My brother was supposed to be at basketball practice. Off campus. Unsupervised. My mom laughed nervously. "This doesn't prove anything." My aunt didn't argue. She just tapped the screen again. "One more thing," she said. "These purchases were made using the saved password on your phone." She looked up at my mom. "Emily doesn't know that password." That was the moment the story cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough that the version they'd accepted without question started to look inconvenient. And my brother, sitting on the couch the whole time, finally stopped smiling. My brother tried to laugh it off. "Come on," he said. "It's just stuff. Anyone could have done it." No one laughed with him. My aunt stayed calm, almost gentle. "Your dad keeps the card locked," she said. "The only two people who know the PIN are him and your mom." She paused, then added, "And the phone it was used on belongs to you." That's when my mom finally looked at him, not angry, confused. "Why would you have my phone?" she asked. He shrugged. "You leave it around." My aunt didn't let it go. "These purchases weren't random," she said. "They line up with your lunch break, your practice days, the time you were suspended last fall." Suspended. That word hadn't been mentioned yet. My dad looked up sharply. "Suspended?" My brother's face flushed. "It was nothing," he said quickly. "Just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding." The same word they'd used about me for years. My aunt closed the laptop. "I don't need to prove anything else," she said. "The statement already did." Silence filled the room. Not relief, not justice. Something heavier. Because realizing you punished the wrong child doesn't feel clean. It feels embarrassing. And no one wants to sit in that feeling for long. My mom finally spoke. "Emily," she said, "go to your room." Not "I'm sorry." Not "we were wrong." Just dismissal. But even then, I knew something had shifted. The perfect son image had cracked. And once that happens, it never fully goes back together. I stayed in my room for the rest of that day. Not because I was grounded anymore. No one said that part out loud. Dinner passed without anyone calling me down. Voices stayed low. Careful. The house felt different, like everyone was walking around something fragile on the floor. My brother didn't come near my door. He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He avoided. That was his move when the story stopped working. The next morning, my aunt was gone. The laptop was shut. The credit card was locked away. Life tried to reset. My mom knocked on my door once, later that afternoon. "You can have your phone back," she said, holding it out. No eye contact. That was it. No apology. No acknowledgement of the winter I'd lost. No explanation for why no one had asked me a single question. I took the phone. "What about him?" I asked quietly. She stiffened. "That's between us and your father," she said. "He's already been dealt with." I knew what that meant. Quiet consequences. Private conversations. Nothing that would disrupt the image too much. He wasn't grounded for winter. He didn't lose his friends. He didn't get labeled. But something had changed anyway. For the first time, when he walked into a room, people watched him. Not proudly, cautiously. The perfect son wasn't perfect anymore. And even though no one said sorry, I understood something important at 15. Sometimes the truth doesn't free you. Sometimes it just removes your replacement. The rest of that winter passed quietly, too quietly. No one brought it up again. No one mentioned the accusation. No one acknowledged what I'd lost. Snow days came and went. Friends posted photos I wasn't in. Events happened without me. I was technically free, but nothing was returned. My brother went back to normal faster than anyone else. Practice. Friends. Jokes at the table. The only difference was subtle. My parents checked statements now. Passwords changed. Drawers closed when conversations got serious. He noticed. I could tell. He stopped teasing me. Stopped accusing me of little things. Not because he felt bad, because he knew someone was watching now. Once the perfect image cracks, even slightly, it changes how far you can push it. We never talked about it. Not that winter. Not the next year. But something inside me settled into place. I stopped explaining myself as much. Stopped rushing to defend small mistakes. I'd learned the truth about how stories work in our family. If you're quiet, you're replaceable. If you're convenient, you're disposable. And if you're labeled early, people stop looking for evidence. That lesson didn't make me angry. It made me careful. Because once you've been punished without being heard, you don't forget what silence costs. And you don't forget who was comfortable believing the worst about you, until the numbers made it inconvenient. Years passed after that winter. I grew up, moved out, built a life that didn't depend on being believed. My brother stayed close to home. Still the favorite. Still protected, but not unquestioned. That mattered more than anyone realized. Every time something went missing, my parents checked first now. Every time a story sounded too clean, my mom hesitated. The trust wasn't gone. It was conditional, and my brother felt it. He'd catch me watching him sometimes. Not smug, not angry, just aware. We never talked about the credit card again, but it lived between us anyway. A quiet marker of the moment his words stopped being automatic. I didn't get justice. I didn't get an apology. What I got was something colder and more permanent. I stopped needing either. Because once you've been blamed without being heard, you learn to build a life where belief isn't required for survival. I chose friends who asked questions. Work where proof mattered more than perception. A future where one person's story couldn't erase me. That winter didn't break me. It taught me exactly how fragile perfect really is. All it takes is one receipt, one statement, one person willing to look, and suddenly, the story everyone believed without question has nowhere left to hide. I saw my aunt again years later at a family gathering. She hugged me longer than usual, didn't say anything at first. Then, quietly, she said, "I knew it wasn't you." That sentence hit harder than I expected. Not because it was validating, because it reminded me how alone I'd been when it mattered. She hadn't accused anyone. She hadn't fought. She just looked, and that was enough to change the story. My parents never brought it up again. Not to apologize. Not to explain. They acted like the truth had simply appeared one day, unrelated to their choices. My brother avoided the topic completely. He didn't tease me anymore, didn't make jokes at my expense. Not out of guilt, out of caution, because once someone has been caught lying that cleanly, they know they can't afford another mistake. I didn't hold it against him. I just stopped trusting narratives that came too easily. That winter taught me something permanent. Being quiet doesn't make you guilty. Being confident doesn't make someone innocent. And being believed has less to do with truth than it does with who people want to be right. I never needed revenge. The statement did that for me. It followed him quietly, year after year, not loud enough to ruin him, but enough to make sure he was never perfect again. By the time I was an adult, the story had softened, not corrected, rewritten. My parents referred to it as a misunderstanding, something vague, shared blame. They never said my brother stole the card. They never said they'd been wrong about me. They just stopped telling the story altogether. That's how families bury things. What stayed with me wasn't the accusation. It was how easily it had been accepted, how quickly my voice had been removed from the equation. I learned early not to rely on being defended, to rely on documentation, patterns, proof. It shaped everything. I kept receipts. I saved messages. I chose environments where facts mattered more than favoritism. And without meaning to, I stopped meeting my family's version of me. The quiet distance between us wasn't hostile. It was informed. I loved them, but I didn't hand them power anymore. That winter took something from me. Carelessness, maybe. But it gave me clarity, and clarity lasts longer than punishment ever does, especially when it comes from seeing exactly who people believe before they bother to ask what actually happened. The strange part is how little it comes up now, not because it was resolved, because it was absorbed. My parents learned to be more careful with accusations. My brother learned to be more careful with lies, and I learned to be more careful with trust. No one announced those lessons. They just settled in. At family dinners, my brother still jokes, still tells stories. But when something sounds too convenient, there's a pause now, a glance, a second look. That pause didn't exist before me. Before that winter, I never bring it up, not to remind them, not to make a point. I don't need to. The bank statement already did. It lives quietly in the background of our family history, not dramatic enough to fight about, not small enough to forget. And that's enough, because the hardest part wasn't being grounded. It wasn't losing a winter. It was learning at 15 that being believed isn't automatic. It's earned or assumed, and assumptions are dangerous when they're handed out unevenly. That realization shaped me more than any punishment ever could. It taught me to ask questions, to verify, to never confuse confidence with honesty. I didn't get an apology. What I got was something more useful, a permanent shift in how stories are received. And once that happens, the truth doesn't need to fight as hard anymore. I don't think my family ever meant to hurt me. That's the part people expect me to say. But intent doesn't erase impact. What stayed with me wasn't the grounding. It was how easily my voice had been removed from the story. How fast everyone accepted a version of events that required nothing from them except agreement. That winter taught me something I've carried into every part of my life since. Don't rely on being believed. Rely on being accurate, because accuracy survives when stories fall apart. My brother lost something that day too. Not his reputation, not his place. He lost immunity. And once that's gone, it never fully comes back. I didn't need to confront him. I didn't need revenge. The truth did its work quietly. It followed him into adulthood, into decisions, into moments where his word used to be enough. And it followed me too, into a life where I ask questions, where I document, where I don't assume silence means guilt. I was 15 when I learned that families don't always protect the truth. Sometimes they protect convenience. But one person willing to look, really look, can change everything. All it took was a bank statement and the courage to open it,